time is, we're doing well because we do not have a Towns Fellowship this year. All from our student pool, either they already received one, or they haven't yet got to the stage where they qualify to get one. So we're ahead of ourselves 15 minutes, and therefore we can take time for more questions of the 3 folks who have spoken already, about 4 folks, and then we'll get on to the next 2 respondents. So 10 minutes for 4 questions, Simon? You want to? Yeah.
So getting outside the realm of physics, science, and all that kind of stuff, and going towards Buddhism, don't you talk about codependent origination versus these different forms of lack of completeness or completeness that are there in such interesting ways in Eastern Asian religion and philosophy?
Yeah. Well, I think what Gautama saw was that he didn't that eternal being wasn't really the point. Even if it existed, it wasn't really the point. And so once you're not going to think about that anymore, then you want to explain how things actually happen, what keeps things together. And his notion of pratitya samuppada, interdependent co-origination, is essentially, as I understand it, that one contingent thing, one dependent, finite element, non-absolute element, comes along and supports another non-absolute element, and then that second absolute element comes around and supports the first one. So you get something that to me seems just like the autogen, where you have one natural process, one little finite natural process coming around and preventing, as it's on its way to complete entropy, and preventing the other little finite process on its way to prevent entropy from getting there. So they're constantly alternating back and forth and keeping each other from collapsing. It's kind of like a pair of trapeze artists that, could hang each other, could take off from their trapezes at the same time, and then each swing each other so the other stayed in the air. That's how it feels to me. But in fact, we've worked this out. There's an actual example of that. I mean, an actual example, detailed enough, chemical enough, physical enough to actually make one in the laboratory.
Let me add to that. In one sense, the implication of that, which I take as being about the nature of being, is that it says that all being is in relation. There isn't being that's not in relation. And I take that as a sort of core essence of that view. And I think that there's a deep sense of that in the world. That all being is in relation, not out of relation. Not absolute, and therefore in and of itself complete and done. It's always in relation. It has that feature to it.
And Carol.
I was just going to ask a quick question about what's going on with trying to make an autogen in the laboratory.
Good question. I have not been able to convince anybody to do it. Now, I have a laboratory, but it's a neuroscience laboratory. Sadly, I am not a physical chemist. There have been potentials out there. There's a fellow that we've been working with, a young man down in Chile, in Santiago, who would like to do it. He is a physical chemist in the laboratory, and he got very excited about this. He would like to be doing this. But of course, he's got to do other things, as many of us have to do. And another young man, a physical chemist, he's Iranian, but he's working in Vancouver, BC, was working with us for a brief period of time. Also wants to be doing this, but he got a great offer to be in a startup biotech company. And so he says, I want to do this for a few years, make enough money, and then I'll come back. So who knows? And there's a third person who got in touch with me, and I don't know what's happened, who did his PhD and postdoc studying microtubule growth. Microtubules is a model that I've used, although microtubules is a little small. They're a model I've used for what I call tubular autogens. So he read this and he said, oh, I can do this. And I haven't heard from him since.
Well, that's a funny thing about the autogen. When you read it and understand it, it's like, it seems like, how did no one think of this before? It seems so ripe and so, like, you know, not today. Isn't there a famous quote about a new idea first, it's crazy, and then it's something or other, and then everybody feels like they already knew it, or something like that?
That would be nice.
Maybe that's coming.
Let's stop there, and thank you for questions. Very good.